In at number 10, Woody Harrelson. In order for Woody Harrelson to become the man that he is today, he had to overcome a lot of baggage that his father left over for him. Woody is a prolific actor now and just about nails it with every performance that he delivers. Although around the age of 12, Woody learned more about his father than he probably wanted to. Upon looking into what Woody's father actually did for a living, we found a ton of evidence online that he used to be a hitman. There is an entire Wikipedia page dedicated to each of the murders that he was involved with, including allegations of being involved with John F. Kennedy's assassination, although that's probably more conspiracy theory than anything else. In 1968, he was acquitted by a jury in Angleton, Texas for the murder of Alan Berg. That same year, he was tried again for the 1968 murder-for-hire killing of a man named Sam Degelia Jr. Apparently, he was paid about $2,000, which by today's standard would be about 15 grand, to murder the grain dealer and father of 4. Woody Harrelson's father was then sentenced to 15 years in jail, but was released on good behavior after only 5 years. His nail in the coffin, though, was when he and his wife were implicated in the murder of Judge John H. Wood Jr. in 1979. In at number 9, Lamar Odom. The former NBA star who was once married to Khloe Kardashian certainly had a spotlight put on his life and struggles therein that exposed some of his deepest and darkest secrets. I truly believe that if he hadn't have married a Kardashian, we still would have never really learned who he truly was. In his 2019 memoir titled Darkness to Light, Lamar talks about the scandal that took place at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel in 2012. He had arranged for 2 strippers to meet him there, as well as reaching out to his drug contact to provide a stash, as he put it. When his wife saw the bill come up on his credit card, though, she immediately showed up with her mom, Kris Jenner, and pounced on the first woman that she saw. Lamar recalls Khloe dropping vicious blows while Kris screamed for her security team to restrain her daughter. Khloe then instructed the security to dispose of all the drugs in the room. Although it wasn't much long after this that in 2015 he was found again overdosing in a hotel room, again accompanied by prostitutes. This time, however, there was no Kardashian at his side to hide the mess that he had just made. In at number 8, Joaquin Phoenix. Believe it or not, but Phoenix isn't actually Joaquin's last name. He was born in the Puerto Rican commune known as the Children of God cult. At the age of 4, his parents managed to escape the cult and relocate their family to the mainland. From there, they changed their last name to Phoenix in order to symbolize a rebirth. Although Joaquin's dark past didn't stop there. His family struggles continued in 1992 when he watched his brother River Phoenix die from an overdose. To make matters worse, he was the one who had to call 911 after his brother collapsed at the famous Viper Room nightclub in Los Angeles. In at number 7, Gene Wilder. Gene Wilder will forever be remembered as one of the cornerstones of comedic acting. He had unparalleled ability to make people smile. However, it was this image that he had built around himself as a comedian that also barred him from ever talking about his struggles with mental health. It wasn't until Gene Wilder passed away at the age of 83 that many fans learned exactly what had been plaguing him for years. When Us Weekly released his cause of death, they mentioned that he had complications with Alzheimer's disease. Not too long after that, his family released a statement to clarify why he had kept his diagnosis private. His nephew said in a statement, "The decision to wait until this time to disclose his condition wasn't vanity, but more so that the countless young children that would smile or call out to him, 'There's Willy Wonka,' would not have to be exposed to an adult referencing illness or trouble and causing delight to travel to worry, disappointment, or confusion. He simply couldn't bear the idea of one less smile in the world." And I think I'm gonna cry now. Yep, we're getting watery. In at number 6, Jack Nicholson. As a superstar both on and off the screen, Jack Nicholson has had an incredible life so far that seemed to be all out in the open for everyone to see. Back in June of 1974 though, when Jack was 37 years old, he discovered shocking new details about his own birth. With his movie Chinatown scheduled to premiere in theaters everywhere, a reporter at Time magazine decided to do a cover story of Jack. Although while preparing for this story and doing some research on the actor, the reporter discovered that the woman for whom Jack had lovingly referred to as his sister was actually his biological mother. Jack had been the illegitimate child of 17-year-old June Nicholson on April 22, 1937. Although because she was so young, her parents agreed to raise Jack as their own and present to him that June was actually his sister. It's said that even on their deathbeds, both maternal grandparents of Nicholson had kept this secret from him. In at number 5, Robert Downey Jr. At this point, it's pretty common knowledge that Downey had a history of drug addiction, but what most people don't realize is that his issues all began at the age of 6 years old. His father was a filmmaker and drug addict who gave his son a joint to smoke at the age of 6. Downey claims that he was surrounded by drugs as a young kid and often used drugs as a way to kind of bond with his troubled father. He believed that when they did drugs together, it was his father's way of expressing love for him in the only way that he knew how. He nearly ended his acting career after being arrested several times for possession of cocaine, heroin, and marijuana use before spending a year in prison in 1999, which meant the cancellation of several acting jobs that he had lined up. After struggling even more with drug abuse between 2001 and 2003, Downey finally was was able to kick the habit through a combination of the 12-step recovery program, meditation, yoga, and martial arts training. In at number 4, Chris D'Elia. Actor and comedian Chris D'Elia just recently was part of the Netflix show called You, and in the show he plays a scumbag comedian that was also hiding the fact that he was secretly a pedophile. Turns out that he had just been method acting for this role for a very long time. D'Elia has been accused of grooming and attempting to solicit nude photographs from underage girls. A woman named Simone tweeted out a screenshot of her alleged interactions with Chris, which began a thread of other women sharing their interactions with him as well. The stories are all pretty horrific considering that these women were all underage at the time, but Chris had been sending these messages to them. To make matters even worse for him, a video clip from his podcast was uploaded where he said that 14-year-old girls look like they're 30. At the time of making this video, Chris has yet to comment on the accusations, so keep that in mind, but with that said, he is most definitely keeping some dark secrets. In at number 3, Richard Pryor. This dark secret would probably not sound like a big deal to everyone living in 2020, but back in the 1970s it would have been much more dangerous. Both Richard Pryor and Marlon Brando kept each other's secrets right up until their death, although the widow of Richard Pryor confirmed a claim by music producer Quincy Jones that the late comedian and Marlon Brando were indeed lovers. His widow Jennifer Lee Pryor said that he was openly bisexual and would be cracking up about his relationship with Brando going public. Having his widow back this story up does give it a lot more weight considering that Quincy Jones is known to make some wild claims. He also has said that Marlon Brando had no objection to sleeping with anyone, and he allegedly has been with James Baldwin as well as Marvin Gaye. But what a power couple those two could have been in today's age. Can you imagine if Richard Pryor and the Godfather Marlon Brando were a Hollywood couple? Amazing. That would have been amazing. Leave me a comment down below what you think their celebrity couple name would be. And at number 2, Charlize Theron. Before she became a world famous actress, Charlize Theron suffered through a lot of tragedy in her childhood. While speaking with Howard Stern, she spoke openly about what it was like to grow up in a household with an alcoholic father and what it was like to deal with her mother shooting and killing her dad in self-defense. For most of her life, Charlize had to just ignore her shocking past. Whenever someone asked her about her father, she had to lie and say that he was killed in a car accident. She didn't tell anyone, nor did she ever want to tell anyone what had actually happened. Imagine holding that traumatic secret not only for yourself, but for your mother as well. During the talk with Stern, she also said that she never wanted to feel like a victim, which is kind of why she avoided telling this story for so long. Adding, "I struggled with that for many years until I actually started therapy." Charlize is not ashamed of what her mother had to do in order to protect them though. She believes that the more we talk about these things, the more that we realize we are not alone in any of it. For her, she just looks at it as a life lesson, a story about growing up with an alcoholic father and what that does to a person. Last but certainly least, in our number 1 spot, Jimmy Savile. Radio personality Jimmy Savile was always upheld as an outstanding citizen that was not only generous but also a very charitable man. So charitable, in fact, that he was even knighted by the Queen for his illustrious career. Although after his death, his dark secrets began to slowly come to light and his reputation would be changed forever. After his death in 2011, Time magazine reported on multiple allegations in regards to sexual misconduct and assault. According to Exaro, the review found that he had been involved in an inappropriate sexual conduct with boys and girls, 3 of which were only 9 years old at the time. Many of the accusations even put the abuse in a timeline where he was still working for the BBC, meaning that for years his predatory behavior had either gone unnoticed or was covered up to protect their image.
3. And at number 10, Bob Saget. Legendary comedian Bob Saget passed away suddenly on January 9th in a hotel room in Orlando. Immediately after his passing, fans were speculating on how he passed. After some investigation, it was reported that there was no foul play or use of substances, that he most likely just passed away of a heart attack or stroke. But the autopsy has just come back, and we know that he actually died of blunt force trauma to the head, a much different story than what was said before. The night before he died, Saget did a show at a concert hall in Jacksonville, Florida. Then he was found unresponsive in his room at the Ritz-Carlton in Orlando, quote, in a face-upward position on his bed, according to a police report. Police are now saying a fall could be the reason, but other experts are claiming the force used is similar to that of a baseball bat, raising even more questions. As of now, Saget's family is blocking the release of any records pertaining to the case over privacy issues, so it seems we may never know what really happened to cause his death. And at number 9, Naya Rivera. Naya Rivera, best known from the show Glee, shocked the world when it was reported that she had gone missing in a lake in July of 2020. She was out on a boat with her young son, and after many hours on the water, the boat returned with only her son on it. Her child was found asleep on the vessel by a boater that afternoon alongside Rivera's purse, wallet, and ID, but Naya was nowhere to be found. After searching the lake for days, her body was discovered. The Ventura County Sheriff's Department announced on July 13th that they had recovered her body following an extensive search and recovery effort. Since then, her death has been ruled an accident, but for many fans, the whole thing just seems too strange to be true, and unfortunately we will never know the full story of what happened on the boat that day. And at number 8, Michael Jackson. The king of pop died suddenly at the age of 50 after suffering a cardiac arrest in June of 2009, but there's been so much mystery around his death, it went from being ruled an OD to a homicide. He was found unresponsive in his home, and it was determined that he ingested too much of a substance. After investigation, his personal physician, Dr. Conrad Murray, was charged with manslaughter, with the courts arguing he prescribed Jackson much more than was needed and his prescription caused his death. The years after his passing, allegations of inappropriate conduct from former friends of Jackson's came to light. And ever since, fans have been trying to figure out what really happened between Jackson and the kids he would spend time with at his home. The secrets of what truly happened will now never be uncovered. And at number 7, Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin is known for a lot of things, specifically being one of the founding fathers of the USA, but it seems he was not always faithful to his wife, and he had a mysterious son with another woman. The son, named William Franklin, was clear he was the son of Franklin's, but notoriously mysterious over who his mother was. Some suspect he was born before Ben married Deborah Reed, making him illegitimate. Another theory is that he cheated on his wife with a mistress who ended up getting pregnant. William was involved with his father's business and even became noteworthy in his own right for helping his father in his famous kite experiment. He eventually settled in England to distance himself from the family, and when he passed, he never revealed who his mother was. And at number 6, Kurt Cobain. Nirvana frontman Kurt Cobain tragically passed away at the age of 27 in 1994 and is a member of the infamous 27 Club. Law enforcement determined that Cobain took his own life, but there was a lot of inconsistencies in his case that led many to speculate that's not actually how he died. A book was even written blaming the whole thing on Cobain's wife, Courtney Love. The book claims that he died of an OD before being shot by Love. A private detective who was hired determined that Love even tried to pay someone to have them kill Cobain for her. This man claimed he was offered $50,000 and even passed a polygraph proving it. Although Love was never officially charged, she's guilty in the court of public opinion, and many fans are convinced she is responsible, but only Cobain knows the truth. And at number 5, Ludwig van Beethoven. On his deathbed, Beethoven wrote a love letter to the love of his life, although he didn't address it to anyone, so we have no idea who this woman was. When he died in 1827, a letter was left to the Germans' immortal beloved. It was later determined that he wrote the letter years before in 1812. Scholars have tried to speculate who his beloved could be, but there is no clear answer. The most likely choice seems to be Antoine Bertinato. She was close with him, mainly because she was actually married to a good friend of his. Others proposed Josephine Countess von Brunswick as the most likely candidate because he had written her love letters in the past. It was speculated that since she was poor and of low social standing, he was not allowed to be open about his true feelings for her. Since he never told anyone, only he knows the answer. And at number 4, the Black Dahlia. The Black Dahlia is one of the most infamous cases in LA history. On January 15th of 1947, 22-year-old Elizabeth Short's body was found dead in a vacant lot near a park in LA. The state of her body was the most concerning. Her body was cut in half and all the blood was drained from it. Her body was also perfectly clean, so no evidence was able to be collected from it. There was only one witness that was any help to police. The person claimed they saw a black sedan parked in the area the night before. Since her passing, there have been tons of theories about how or why it happened. And even though so much time has passed, nobody has ever been charged for the crime. Today, the Black Dahlia case remains one of the oldest cold case files in LA, as well as the city's most famous. And at number 3, Prince. Prince is one of the most legendary singers of all time, who made a huge impact on the industry, but his shocking death left many with unanswered questions, and many fans are still convinced we don't know the full story. On April 21st of 2016, he was found unresponsive in an elevator at the Paisley Park studio. Initially, the police marked it as an accident because when he passed away, he had many substances in his system. No charges were filed against anyone, even though many of Prince's fans do not believe he would have done this. Years later, there is still no definitive answers, specifically no idea how he got these substances and how he was able to ingest so much. According to sources that knew him very well, he didn't use any of these substances and had no intentions to start. Because there's still so many unanswered questions, the case remains open. And at number 2, George Reeves. In 1959, actor George Reeves was killed under very mysterious circumstances. He made a name for himself playing Superman in the 1950s TV show Adventures of Superman, but his career was cut short after he was killed. At the age of 45, he was killed by a shot to the head. The strange death was then labeled as him taking his own life, but many fans did not believe this could be the case. It was rumored that he was intentionally killed or the death was completely accidental. To add even more strangeness, the death happened while Reeves was with 3 other people, including his fiancée. But even though all those people most likely witnessed what actually happened, none of them ever told. And finally, number 1, Nicole Brown Simpson. One of the most talked about cases of all time is the case of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. Their death started the case of O.J. Simpson that would become the trial of the century. Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend Ron Goldman were killed outside Simpson's Brentwood, California condo in 1994. After some investigation, it was clear that O.J., her ex-husband, was the prime suspect. His DNA had been found at the crime scene, and witnesses saw him leaving the scene of the crime that night. After an intense and highly publicized trial, he was found not guilty, and with no other suspects considered, the person responsible is still out there. Although many people are convinced that O.J. is the person who did it, and lucky circumstances are the real reason he got off. He was later found guilty of committing the act in a civil lawsuit done by Ron Goldman's family, but because of O.J.'s financial troubles, he has not paid this debt. Years later, O.J. went to prison for robbery and is now out free. So starting off at number 10, we have Kris Jenner. Kris Jenner revealed one of her most regretful secrets in her memoir, Kris Jenner and All Things Kardashian. In the book, she gave details on her affair with Todd Waterman that happened while she was still married to Rob Kardashian. She wrote in her memoir, quote, "We had sex everywhere, all the time. Out of control, crazy, dangerous, wild sex." She admitted to doing it in cars, on the tennis court, in the pool house, and even the garage. Jenner opened up in interviews later that she thinks it was her age that caused her to make the mistake. Since she met Rob at the age of 18, then married him at 22, she was getting bored of their marriage after 10 years of being together. And when she was introduced to Todd, who was 10 years younger than her, she was smitten. Adding that people always think the grass is greener, but she deeply regrets her cheating. And at number 9, Drew Barrymore. Drew Barrymore has been opening up about her horrible childhood and all the terrible things she did when she was just a preteen. In her book, she revealed that she got into drugs when she was just 10 years old. Writing, quote, "When I was 10 and a half, I was sitting in the backseat of a car driven by a friend's mother. She started smoking pot. I wanted to try it for a long time, but I was afraid if I asked, she'd say, 'No way, Drew, you're too young.' However, she offered me some, and I said, 'Sure, I'll try it.' I was shocked. But she had that look to say, 'Isn't it cute, a little girl getting stoned?'" And she also just revealed on an episode of her show with Paris Hilton that she went to behavioral schools when she was younger because she was so out of control, and she was locked in solitary many times. And at number 8, Woody Harrelson. Actor Woody Harrelson has been part of the film industry for decades now, and he's a true Hollywood legend. But while you might never expect him to have some familial skeletons in the closet, he does, and his father was actually a notorious hitman. And he actually committed the first assassination of a judge in the 20th century. But that was not his only one. He also killed a carpet salesman for $1,500 after a deal fell through. Apparently, Harrelson found out about his father's occupation when he was 12 years old. Charles Harrelson passed away in prison in 2009. And at number 7, Rihanna. Rihanna is one of the most successful female musicians of all time, but she's another star with some family issues that she tried to keep a secret. Apparently one day out of the blue, Rihanna discovered that her father, Ronald Fenty, had another secret family. And that meant that Rihanna had 2 sisters and 1 brother that she never knew existed, with all of the 3 siblings having different mothers. Her father was also addicted to alcohol, drugs, and sex. But after some time, it seems that Rihanna has been the bigger person, and they've been able to repair their relationship. And at number 6, Kathy Griffin. Kathy Griffin is a woman known for making everyone around her laugh. But like with a lot of comedians, Kathy used humor to cope with a lot of the bad she was dealt when she was younger. In her autobiography, My Life on the D-List, she speaks about the trauma she endured because of her brother, Kenny. She wrote that he was inappropriate with her very often, and that led her to have a lot of internal issues. She also claims that when she was around him, she felt a dark and even violent presence. She even spoke further in the book about some things that she witnessed in adulthood, saying that she once saw him hurting his own wife. He eventually went to prison and then ended up passing away, but the bad memories still live with her. Halfway number 5, Mariah Carey. It was revealed that Mariah Carey was suffering from bipolar disorder, but the unfortunate part is that it wasn't Mariah herself that shared it with the world, but rather her sister. Because of her sister's comments, Mariah opened up about her sister and the issues that she has that affects Mariah as well. Mariah's sister Allison claimed that Mariah had been struggling with the disorder for years, but the relationship between the sisters is more than a little strange, and they allegedly hadn't spoken since 1994 at the time. Allison has been arrested multiple times for illegal activities, and she once told undercover cops that she could, quote, give them a sweet, sweet fantasy. Allison also calls out Mariah for not helping her with her medication, since she deals with her own issues and is in need of money to pay for the medication. Because of this, Allison has tried to extort her sister multiple times for money, which I'm sure is incredibly exhausting for Mariah. In at number 4, Loughlin. This is one I'm sure you know of, but some big names in Hollywood were exposed big time when Operation Varsity Blues found that Loughlin and Felicity Huffman had bribed their child's way into prestigious universities. Loughlin and her husband, fashion guru Massimo Giannulli, were accused of paying $500,000 to get their daughters Olivia J. Giannulli and Bella Giannulli into USC on the crew team, when, as I'm sure that you already know, they never even played the sport. In light of everything, the family lost tons of sponsorship deals, and Loughlin's contract with Hallmark came to an abrupt end. And in the end, Lori was sentenced to 2 months in prison for her crimes. And now the family's reputation will probably never be the same. And at number 3, Demi Moore. Demi Moore spilled everything about her marriage to Ashton Kutcher in her 2019 memoir, Inside Out. And there are things in the book that I'm sure she was reluctant to bring to light again. In the book, she talks about the tumultuous 8-year marriage to Ashton Kutcher, giving details on the fact that they had a threesome because Ashton essentially begged for it. After it happened, Moore was regretful about the situation, but it seemed that Ashton was not, and only made him more distant in the marriage. Writing in her book, quote, because we'd brought in a third party into our relationship, Ashton said that blurred the lines and to some extent justified what he'd done, speaking about the fact that it led to him cheating down the line. But the marriage was over after he admitted to cheating on her with a 21-year-old woman in 2011, adding in an interview that the divorce is the reason she had a relapse with her alcohol addiction. Saying in the Red Table Talk interview, quote, the addiction was in the codependency. My addiction to Ashton was probably almost more devastating than alcohol because it took me seriously away emotionally. And because she had spilled all of these secrets, she was asked why she decided to talk about all this now, with her responding, quote, I think my desire was to really get to a place where I'm okay to really be seen. Adding, quote, when there isn't anything to protect, that's a great spot. And at number 2, Allison Mack. The case of Smallville actor Allison Mack was one of the most shocking and disturbing in recent years. On April 20th of 2018, the actor was arrested in Brooklyn on charges of sex trafficking, along with other similar crimes. Apparently, she was heavily involved in a bad group of people called NXIVM, and apparently she was used to recruit women into the group. And then these victims were later exploited by the group in numerous ways. After a lengthy trial, Mack pled guilty to the charges. However, it's been over a year since she was sentenced, and no time has actually been given. So she's been on house arrest in her parents' house this whole time. And at number 1, Meghan Markle. Since Meghan Markle became one of the most famous people on earth basically overnight, a lot has been exposed about her, a lot that I'm sure she wishes didn't. One thing is that her sister said she, quote, is a social climber with a soft spot for gingers. Okay. But one of the biggest secrets about Meghan that people are pretty convinced is true is that she used to author a shady blog about the industry. The blog was called, quote, The Working Actress. And to give you an idea of some of the stuff she wrote about, the blog said it was documenting the ups and downs of a hustling young actress in the cutthroat world of Hollywood. In February 2018, the Daily Mail reported that impeccable sources from California confirmed that Meghan Markle wrote the blog, with an actor named Lance Carter telling Daily Mail, quote, yeah, it was definitely Meghan who wrote it. Then in Andrew Morton's biography, Meghan a Hollywood Princess, the magazine included the working actress in a list of the royals' former jobs. So clearly her more public blog, The Tig, wasn't all she was writing.